Okay, hello everybody. I'm Max. I'm from Software Mention, and I want to talk to you a little bit today about Protostar, which is toolchain for writing smart contracts for StarkNet. I don't know. I want to ask first, maybe, are you familiar with the tool, or everybody here is new and just want to know what Protostar is capable of? If somebody else familiar with the tool can raise your hand, maybe. Okay, so that's great because it will be a bit introductory overview today, not very deep down things. Okay, the workshop will have format of more like of interactive demo with some exercises. If you want to follow up with me, you can access this QR code, or you have like short here. We have some time for right now to access it if you want to do so, and everything I will be going through will be available in the script. And if I will be going too fast a little bit, or something you want, or you want to get to it later, it will still available. So yeah, that's it probably. We have some time, and we will be starting. Okay. So what is Protostar? As I said, it's a toolchain for developing StarkNet contracts. What does it mean? It basically gets you through the whole process of writing a contract, from creating a project to writing it and testing it, and at the end, deploying it on StarkNet. Why actually to choose Protostar? Because there are some other alternatives in the ecosystem, like Nile or Hardhat. So Protostar first is fast. It's much faster, and like in some scenarios even 10 times faster than alternatives, which is a big deal because testing speed is one of the biggest pain points of current dev tools. It's pretty frictionless because installation and everything is like made as simple as possible for developers. So we are focusing on that. Also, it's pretty flexible because we have something we call cheat codes. I will talk about it a bit later. But those allow you to test much more possible scenarios. And it's actively developed. We have quite a big team. We are very responsive to the community needs. We sometimes implement features which are not even sometimes, we very often implement features which are requested by the community. So that's it. And today we will work through, we'll go through like creating a very simple smart contract in Protostar. And we will try to deploy it on DevNet probably, but yeah, because probably 25 minutes is not enough to wait for a transaction to get accepted. Okay, so installing Protostar is pretty easy. You can just copy nice one-liner, which is available in our repository. And you can paste it to the terminal. And everything will do itself. So it's pretty nice. You don't have to set up any PyN for whatever other tools need to. OK, that's great. After that, we want to probably create a project. So we start with Protostar init. First run often takes a little bit of time because Python implementation, but next comments will be much faster. OK, waiting for that. I want. OK, I'm asked. No, I don't want to adapt anything. It's the text automatically if there are in some directory there are some kind of files, because Protostar allows you to adapt existing projects to its structure, but it's outside of the scope of this workshop. Right now we can choose our project name. So let's call it workshops. And it's done. Right now we can cd into our directory, and we're here. We have some files, but we will check it out in ADE to have it a bit easier. Okay, going through the whole tree structure of the project, we have basically 3 files right now and 2 directories. There is mine.cario, which is and src, which is shortcut for source, and those are basically our contracts we want to write. There are tests, which, as the name suggests, tests are located, and it's Protostar toml, which is very nice config file, which saves a lot on time and development process, and has some very nice tricks to help you out. Okay, so this is it. Right now, we will go to our contract. I will go to the script, and we will take a look on little too big blob of code, but don't worry, I will explain everything in a second. Okay, so what do we have here? We have a very, very simple, most basic possible smart contract here. What is there? There is a balance, which is a storage variable, which basically stores a felt. And you can just store it there. There are one external method, which is increase balance. And how name suggests, it increases balance of your account. You just pass amount as an argument, and by this amount, the balance is incremented. Also, it has some asserts to check if the number is correct, because you cannot, like, for example, increment the amount by a negative amount. Okay. Also, we have like view for getting a balance, which, as the name suggests, it gets balance and exposes it to external users. And we have a simple constructor which sets an initial state to 0 when you deploy a contract. Okay. So we won't focus on writing contract here because Protostar is more for testing, and we will focus more on testing because of that. Okay. Let's take a look on a test for this contract. I will paste it here. And what is happening here? Generally, like Protostar flow for testing is a bit confusing, at least for beginners. And we are working on changing that, actually, but I will talk about it in the end for future plans, if we have some time. But generally, for now, how exactly testing works. Often you have some internal functions of a contract you want to test like standalone. So you have a function in Cairo, and you want to check if this function is isolated, does what you want it to do. And such testing we call generally unit testing. And how we can do it in Protostar. So here we have like a contract. It's also a contract, but it's a testing contract, which we name a test suite, which is basically it. It's one file with tests, which itself is a contract. And here we import the methods from the contract we wrote just before. And what Cairo does here during compilation, it basically merges the test contract with the original contract. So those are actually the same contract, but the tests have access. So because of that, the tests have access to, for example, storage balance, and can manipulate the state however it wants, and can execute the methods of the contract. So it's a bit weird, I believe, but yeah. I hope it gets easier in time and has some sense in it and has some benefits. It may be for people coming from Foundry background, because Protostar is heavily inspired by Foundry, and this is something that happens there as well. Okay, so this test is pretty simple. It calls the method increase balance, and then reads storage variable. It checks if the storage variable has been incremented. Nothing fancy. Okay, So we will go to a bit more complex scenario to show you the power of Protostar. I will call new fire integration test. You will see in a second why. OK. I will need to do once more magic copying here. But don't worry, I will explain as well. OK. So what do we have here? We have a bit more complicated setup. We have also smart contracts here, because always, as I said, every test suite in Protostar is a smart contract itself, which is deployed on local chain. And as you see here, this is a pretty standard carrier flow. So we have the other contracts interface. And we want to do, instead of like merging the test contract here with the tested contract, we instead want to deploy the tested contract from test. It's also possible through Protostar, although it's not recommended flow. It's useful when you want to test, for example, multiple contracts interacting together. But it's slower, because deployment is one of the biggest bottlenecks when, like, it has a lot of performance overhead. So if you want your test to be fast, you should use the previous approach in most cases, and those like to limited set of cases which are testing more general architecture. Yeah, but we are showing for sake of example here. OK, here's the interesting part, because generally you can deploy a contract from another contract. It's how it works. Yeah, it's the only possible way to deploy it, but you cannot declare it. You have to do it through CLI or something like that. In Protostar, we don't have to, because we have cheat codes. What are cheat codes? Cheat codes are external parts of it's an API exposed by Protostar, which can be accessed right now through hints. And it allows to do a lot of illegal stuff, which is useful for testing. So here it's deploy contract, but the documentation explains it, but it basically under the hood declares and then deploys contract. So you can just do everything from test here. And we can see, like, we declare the variable, we deploy a contract, and then extract contract address and save it to the variable. After that, we can use it like a standard, like the standard carrier flow. Yeah, so we can call the contract get balance and pass the address there. So, and then assert the value. After that, we can call increase balance, gain the balance again, and assert the new value, which is correct. OK, we have two nice simple tests which expose some cool features we have. So let's run them then. OK, we are here. And how to run tests? Probably Protostar test, which seems intuitive. And indeed is. And you can see, like, collected two suites. And it's like two tests, because each suite has one test. And both passed, because they were supposed to do so. OK. So we basically can consider our contract developed and tested. Of course, it's very simple. And probably in the real-life scenario, you want to test it more extensively. But right now, we can just go on and try to deploy it, declare and deploy it. OK. For the purpose of this presentation, I will use a local instance of DevNet. But it will work the same if you want to do it for testnet. Just like for DevNet, it will be a bit faster, and I have to do it this way. First things first, we have to provide the Protostar with private key, because to declare and to deploy, Protostar needs to know your private key to sign your transactions. So we start by this, and it's provided as an environment variable to be consistent with how StarkNet does it in their CLI. I have a DevNet instance here, but I have to restart it probably. And I should get my deployed. So DevNet comes with some pre-deployed accounts which have some balance, so I will just use them. So I get the account number 9 here, and I will copy the private key here, which works like this. Great. Right now, we can probably build our contract. So it's also simple as that. We run Protostar build, and that's all. One important thing maybe you want to know is how Protostar knows what to compile and what to test. So by default, what to test, it just searches for our files which start with or end with tests in the test folder directory. And for compiling, you have Protostar toml, which is a configuration file. And here you can declare all of your contracts. And for this example here, it's only like one contract, which is named main, and it has some source. So it just defaults it. But you can have more contracts declare, and contracts can be composed from more files. So you can build much more complex things here if you need to do so. OK. Let's come back to our declaring and deploying then. We have our contract built. We can see its do directory appeared, and it's called build. And we have ABI here of the contract, and we have compiled contract itself. So we want to use it to declare it right now. There is a very simple command for that, and it's named Protostar declare. Let's write it here. We have to provide max fee, which we don't care here, so we do 1,000. We also have to provide account address. It will be from our DevNet instance here, and it is here. So we copy it and go here. OK, what else? We also need, we can use a parameter network. If you want to deploy testnet, it's enough to write it, and it will work. But we don't deploy on testnet during this presentation, so I will have to do a bit more complicated setup for the DevNet. And here I need to provide this URL, which is a URL of gateway. And we need to provide the chain ID, which we don't care that much about it, because it's DevNet, but Protostar requires it because for the sake of consistency. But I don't remember which was correct, but we'll see. Protostar will hint me to correct one in a second. So I give a path to my contract, compile one, and as I said, we need to provide correct ID, and I will just go with here. And it worked. And what next? We want to deploy it. So we need class hash for that. And it will be quite similar to the command before. So we just need to change declare for deploy and contract path for. Oh, I run it once again. It's supposed to happen. OK. And we need to deploy, and we need to also replace our path here because we want to provide class hash because our contract is already declared. OK, that's all. You can see that providing those arguments for those commands is pretty cumbersome. And we solved that because of Protostar config, because you can provide all of this, which is the because right now it's kind of similar to using StarkNet CLI. But here, each of these arguments can be provided in Protostar config. So you don't have to write each time. You want to declare or deploy new version, for example. And what else? It's not only like you can declare one set of arguments. Protostar supports profiles. So you can, for example, write Protostar profile something, which is their custom name. And then the command you execute will use this profile. So it's pretty nice thing to use. OK. So that was kind of the overview of the whole process. But it's very, very small scope of what Protostar is capable of. Because feature set right now is quite big, I would say. And there are lots of things you can use and learn about. So first thing is you can right now read about Protostar config, which is included in docs, which are linked at the top of the document, and learn how to use it properly to improve your workflow. You can dive into other cheat codes, because deploy contract is not only thing we have. For example, you can only declare contracts. You can expect some reverts, so you can test that your errors are handled correctly. Also, you can, for example, expect some events. You can modify the storage of different contracts, even the storage is not exposed. And there are lots of possibilities there. For example, you can mock other contracts methods. So, so you don't have to deploy them. You can just simulate their behavior. Also, Protostar supports fast testing or property-based testing, which is very cool technique. Also very popular among smart contract developers. And if you are not familiar with it, it basically allows you to, instead of testing for one specific value, like I did here, for example, 42, instead we can instruct Protostar to randomize the arguments. So you can test it, for example, for 100 random values. You can, of course, control the size of the sample. Also, Protostar CLI is very compatible with various types of scripts, because we have flag JSON, which when you use, the script, instead of printing the nice, pretty print output, will give you a JSON, which you can read, for example, from script, and it's compatible with whatever language you choose. So you can write your, for example, deployment scripts in Python, Bash, or JavaScript, or whatever is used these days. Rust, probably. It's a popular one. If you want to write your deployment script in Rust. OK. And also, the cool feature we have is transaction profiler, which even I would show you, but probably I don't have time for that. So basically, you can generate, visualize execution graph of your transactions. So you can see which functions of your contract are. Actually, I will show you fast screenshot, because it's only I have time for. So you can get a nice tree of execution of your contract and get distribution of cost in terms of built-ins, memory holes, and steps of each method. So it's also very cool if you need to save on gas. And that's all for today. Thank you for listening. And if you have any questions or you want to use Protostar for any purposes you have, don't restrain to talk to me, and we'll be open to talk. And for example, we are open to feature requests as well, because we want to address the community needs as much as possible. Once again, I'm from Software Mention, and thank you for your time.